Hi everybody, thank you for joining Hype webinar. We are very proud with our lineup today, and we have very also proud on our registration and crowd. It's a very busy webinar with people lining up from New Zealand to Canada and from anywhere in the world. And we would like to keep the timeline very tight in order to close the session within 90 minutes. I just will start with a few minutes of context. As we all know, the world of sports is enjoying massive growth and investment, and the reason is the rapid change that we see in the way that fans is consuming sports nowadays, with mega trends like social media and internet shopping. And that's create a really consuming behavior shift. And in 10 years, people will consume sports really different. But the question is how and what innovation will be disrupting the current paradigm. So in this webinar, we gathered together a few of the top minds in the sport industry to raise some questions which are really hot takes on the discussion table today. And this presentation will be short, and the panel will be able to take questions. You can type your questions in the webinar, and we will collect them and have like 2 or 3 of them now. Later on, you can email me your questions for the next 24, 48 hours, and we are promising to give you the panel feedback. So just to give you the lineup today, we have Sébastien Audoux from Canal Plus. We'll talk about the TV status. Jennifer Langton from the NFL. We'll talk about some safety initiatives. Nenner from the Washington Redskins about esport. Ryan McCumber from KPMG about the fan engagement, the digital world, and Glenn Fox from USC on some performance and mental properties of that. Next slide. I would like just to give you also a word about Hype. So Hype is working in a few verticals. We have our global events, which we brand Spin Finals. We are just heading into the NBA event. Our Spin Top 50, which is basically a consulting and mentorship sessions for a year, is running for the 3rd year, and it's very successfully. Our Spin Labs network of accelerator, we are very proud that there will be 4 accelerators already in place from Australia to US and Europe. And the Spin Fund is our investment fund that is coming up together to be able to invest in startups. And altogether, we are looking at a very holistic startup approach from the starting of the seed money, and then the startups can be participating in different programs and different initiatives of Hype. So we are in a very unique position to leverage on the startup scene. Lastly, some of the coming up soon events. We'll have the Spin Lab, Spin Final, alongside the NBA All-Star Weekend coming up soon. Also, there's a Global Sports Innovation Survey that is available today. Very unique and very interesting findings from hundreds of executives in the sports space that have answered our questionnaire. Where is the money? Where should we invest? And what is the sports and verticals that need to be taken into account? And lastly but not least, there is the Spin Labs that are taking startups today for applications in 4 locations. Please, you can get to all of this program in our website and other social media places. Okay, without further ado, I would like to start the presentations and the topics. Sébastien, if you could load up your slides, please try and stay within 10 minutes, and we will take questions later. Please, Sébastien.
So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect then. Just a few words about me. I'm handling all the digital activities for the sports division at Canal+. I've been in broadcasting almost 20 years, starting by being an announcer for the NBA and then golfing. I launched 2 channels, NBA Plus and then Golf Plus for Canal+, and then ended up running the sports for the digital division at Canal+. We've always been very keen in doing new stuff on digital. We were the first ones in France to launch a second screen app that was a soccer app, football app. Then we launched a rugby and Formula 1 app, which just won an award at the last Portal. We were the first one to do 360 live for a sport event that was a boxing match. And we are also doing 2 live shows on Facebook every week. And those are broadcast quality shows that we do on Facebook, which was kind of new in France and in Europe as well. As far as my theme for tonight is TV dead as a sports screen. First of all, a bit of context, because we are all very into digital innovation in sports. But if you look at the data, it's not a clear cut as most of the people in this small world are thinking. If you look at those data from the UK, if you look at the average video time per day, if you look at that, live TV is still way ahead of all the other devices and platforms, and it's still true even for the 16 to 24 years old segment, and we're always talking about those millennials not watching TV at all. But if you look at the data, it's not completely true. And even for the people who subscribe to an OTT offer, they are still watching more live TV than they are watching OTT. Again, according to the data from Comscore, which is from the US. Obviously, the other thing is that there was a lot of talk about ESPN losing subscribers, firing a lot of journalists the past few months. But again, that's true, they're losing subscribers like most of the pay TV brands all around the world. That's even true for Canal+, for Sky Sports in the UK. But again, in 2011, ESPN was paid less than $5 per subscribers in the US. Now it's almost $8 per subscribers, according to a research firm. So that means that they are still collecting $2.3 billion every year from their subscribers, which is still a lot, and they're still making a lot of money for Disney. So just a bit of context to maybe put some stuff in perspective. Yes, pay TV is going into a big revolution, but I mean, live TV is still very big all around the world, and it's even true if you look at advertising. That's another research that I found from Ipsos. If you look at the impact of advertising, and you get all of those questions that were asked to a panel, again, TV advertising is still very impactful and actually a lot more than any other media. So from that perspective, TV, yes, it's not dead. But obviously, we're going into a big revolution right now in terms of distribution, because obviously OTT is taking over with all those direct-to-consumer apps that we can now subscribe to, or even with Facebook, which is the only free platform on this panel that I put into that slide. Obviously, you've got DAZN, the Perform app, which is doing very well in Europe. They launched in Canada. You've got all those sports league apps like the NFL, the ATP, the PGA Tour. They all have their own OTT app. Obviously, there were a lot of talk of Amazon buying rights for the NFL. and they also bought the rights for the ATP Master 1000 and Masters 500 in the UK. So obviously a lot of new players are coming into the market. All the other players, the older ones like ESPN, obviously they're putting a lot of effort into their OTT platform. We're doing the same thing in France with Canal, and we have our own platform which is called My Canal. Sky is doing the same in the UK with a strategy a bit different than ours. But if you look at the ESPN losing subscribers in the linear business, but getting a lot of OTT subscribers, and basically if you look at those data by 2020, they will break even in terms of subscribers. They will have gained the subscribers they lost the past few years. So good for them. I don't think the TV will be dead as a device, not at all. I mean, obviously, I was at a conference this year where the people from BuzzFeed kept telling that people will only watch videos on mobile, and I'm not buying that at all. I think the experience of the big couch and big screen will always be something, with the 4K TVs, soon 8K TVs, smart TVs, and so on. I think the true revolution is that we are coming from a world of channels to a world of app. And if you look at those pictures that I found online, you see people basically looking at different apps where they used to switch between channels. Does that make a big difference in terms of usage? I'm not sure. I think it's a big distribution thing. I think it's huge for all the players in the market. I don't think that's a huge difference in terms of the way consumers are watching TV as a device again. And if you look at the right part of the pictures, you see people, and that's the new thing to me. They are all watching TVs with an iPad or with an iPhone in their hands. And the second screen is very big today, which brings me to my last slide. I've met a lot of different companies doing a lot of new innovative apps which were supposed to basically kill TV. And I saw them switch the past few years, the past few months, and now they are trying to be a complement to the TV screen. At the top left, you've got the Fox VR app, basically that app, which is made by Livelike, was supposed to be mostly used by people who have a complete VR gear with the helmet and so on. But basically, it ended up being an app where you're basically using your iPhone or your iPad to, as a remote control, to switch between the different feeds, the VR and 360 and 180 feeds that you can access on. So basically, it's an iPad as a remote control, and you're still watching the TV. On the bottom right, you've got a French company called Immersive, which is working with the HoloLens Microsoft helmet. And again, it's basically an AR device which will allow you to improve your TV experience by accessing data and so on with AR, but you're still watching TV. So again, the true revolution is that we're coming from a 100% linear world where you had to switch between different channels. Now you're going to switch between Netflix, My Canal, the ESPN app, the NBA League Pass, the NFL Pass, the tennis TV from the ATP, and so on. It's going to change a lot of things for people that are in the sports market, in the sports rights market, for example, because obviously there's a lot of newcomers bidding for rights, older players which are going to lose rights. But basically, I don't think that TV is going to be dead as a device. I just think that the distribution is going to totally change in the next few years. So cable and satellite are probably dead in the next few years. I don't think TV will be dead in the next few years, not at all.
Great, Sebastian. Thank you for the bold statement about TV staying alive. We had many questions, but we can only take few of them. First of all, is there anybody from the panel that wants to make a quick comment about Sebastian's presentation?
This is Rod. I think what Sébastien is saying is that content is king, and that good content is always going to be consumed, and it's just a change in the distribution methods. So if you look at television as a platform, then it continues. It's just a screen in the house, and it gives you the ability to watch whatever you want when you want it. So it's all about distribution of content as opposed to changing of content. Good content always wins.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rod.
I second that. Very well stated, Rod. I also love Sebastian's very bold statement as well. Well done, Sébastien.
Thank you.
Great. Maybe we'll take one or two questions. First of all, with respect to Facebook and Google or on the others taking media rights, Sébastien, do you see them also producing TV sports in the future?
Well, I was at the Facebook HQ 3 weeks ago, and obviously that was all the big talks was what Facebook is going to do in the next few years. And obviously they bid for cricket rights in India. They lost to Fox, which bid over $2 billion to get all the rights, linear and non-linear rights. And that's the big question, is that are they going to buy rights, I mean major rights, on an exclusive basis, or are they going to just maybe try to convince rights holder like Canal Plus, Sky, ESPN, and so on to put more and more content into their platform? And obviously the goal of the Watch platform that they launched in the US, and they are going to launch it in Europe in the coming months, is to add exclusive content, but not necessarily original. I mean, it could be content produced by regular broadcasters. I don't think they have something against that, because the issue is that once you start buying a lot of rights, then you have to produce your own feed, which is obviously huge and very costly. So I think the main thing for Facebook now is to maybe get a few streaming rights where they can. And I think they will probably, for example, bid for the digital rights of the French soccer league in the next year. That's something I think will happen. I think Amazon will make a bid as well. But are we going to see Facebook truck parked in outside the NFL stadium and soccer field in France and so on? We'll see. I'm not sure Facebook wants to produce sports themselves. I think they would love if they could keep all the people producing stuff for them and basically remain a platform. And obviously you've got a lot of reach through Facebook, so basically everybody has to work with Facebook and everybody has to be on Facebook. So currently the situation is ideal.
Okay, obviously with their deep pockets you can never know, but thank you. Unfortunately we cannot take more questions on this subject. We already just on time. So thank you, Sébastien. We will take questions by email and provide the answers later on, offline. Rod, you are on, and we are talking about, no? Jennifer, sorry. Okay, sorry. Jennifer, you are on.
Wonderful. Sorry, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So I wanted to thank Hype first for inviting me to speak today. The question that was proposed is, can advanced technology better help protect against injury? So I wanted to take the opportunity to share with you all what the NFL is doing currently and has been doing over the past 2 years as I have been the Vice President of Health and Safety here, Health and Safety Initiatives at the League Office, what we do to advance technology to better help protect our athletes from injury. So, our Play Smart, Play Safe initiative launched in September 2016 as a league-wide commitment to health and safety of every player. The NFL and our 32 owners had acknowledged at that point in time that we had made significant progress in this space. And when I say progress, that's investments in medical research, that's investments in innovation, that is, changes in a significant number of safety-driven rules changes to our game, yet that there was more to do. We committed to continually raise our standards, committed to look at everything and anything and everything to make the game safer. We also committed to be transparent and share our progress, which is very important to us. Along with this commitment was a new $100 million commitment from our owners to support independent medical research as well as engineering advancements, that is protective equipment. So as you can see here on the right side of the slide, $60 million is dedicated to what I will bring you through today is an engineering roadmap that aims to make transformational improvements in head protection. And the other $40 million is dedicated to fund independent medical and neuroscience research. On September 12th of this year, we launched a request for proposals soliciting such research, and that right now is under selection and is being managed by an independent scientific advisory board. So our engineering roadmap. Under the leadership of Dr. Jeff Crandall, who is the Director of Center of Applied Biomechanics at the University of Virginia and is also the chair of the NFL's Engineering Committee. We have a host of different committees here that help us and advise us as to what medical research we should invest in, what innovations we should invest in, etc. And so Jeff Crandall had begun and really spearheads for us to continue championing new developments in engineering, biomechanics, advanced sensors, and material science, all aimed to mitigate forces and protect against injury. This is a very comprehensive plan to create incentives for sporting goods companies, manufacturers, and entrepreneurs, as well as universities, to develop improved helmets and or protective equipment. So you can see by the graphic here, by 2020, which is on the right side, we aim to see breakthrough technologies such as position-specific helmets. And to simplify this, I like to always give the example. If a quarterback is more likely to receive impact in the back of the head, and that back of the head is where they are, is what we call the mechanism of injury for concussion, then why isn't a helmet designed to add more protection to the back of the helmet? This could then, potentially mitigate specifically for that position. So that is indeed our goal. This is a very regimented approach led by engineers for which we hope to gain significant improvements that will be infused with data and based on good science. The NFL had partnered also last year after we had launched the Play Smart, Play Safe initiative with Duke University, more specifically Dr. Barry Myers, who is an engineer for the NFLPA. But what Barry has done is we've created, modeled off of the challenges that we've run with GE, a series of innovation challenges intended to deepen our understanding of and advance next-generation solutions in the areas of head protection, material science, as well as head kinematics. We want to stimulate research and innovation, as well as encourage connections with mentors, as well as venture capitalists. It is very important for us here at the League Office to be able to connect those in the marketplace so that we do see protective equipment, but we see protective equipment that goes to research to our field. So this program is currently designed to offer 3 head health tech challenges a year. And under Barry's leadership, we have appointed an oversight committee who serves as a panel of experts. And that panel of experts review the proposals and dedicate funds to award the most promising ideas and innovations. We currently have 1 challenge open. And so this challenge invites proposals for improvements in football protective equipment, more specifically improvements in helmets and or surfaces for which helmets contact, ready to deploy material advances, and studies that define the range of exposures to improve test protocols for helmet developments. We also are looking at studies that can actually prove out for us the optimal stress strain properties of helmet materials. The current challenge right now is open, as I said, and the deadline is January 10th, 2018. We do have an upcoming webinar scheduled right now for December 12th at 11:30. And what we do in those webinars is really explain what type of proposals we are soliciting, but we like to highlight some of the success of this program and innovation challenges, and what makes it so compelling as opposed to other challenges. So let me give you an example, and I think that this is really the strength of the program that we have developed with Barry Myers at Duke University. But every single proposal that we have gotten in, and this is hundreds of proposals with 4 challenges that we've currently run, but every single proposal receives valuable feedback for every company that has submit. And why we do that is we want to be able to provide constructive feedback. So to help them to really refine their innovations and increase the chances and likelihood that they will be on our field. And so if it is a proposal that does come in and they don't have the correct testing, and so what I mean by that, if they're just doing a linear test, and we're advising them to do rotational testing as well, because that's what rotational forces are what cause injury. We educate them, but we also give them the connection so that they could go to a facility to do the appropriate testing and then hopefully reapply. So this program is really built to encourage and support new ideas that will improve sports safety, but we really try to increase the likelihood of that success. And so, to date, we have run and funded winners from 2 challenges. Some are listed here on this slide. The third is currently under review by that oversight committee, and winners will be announced for that third challenge in February 2018. As I mentioned earlier, Challenge 4 is currently open, and submissions, as you'll see on the bottom of the slide, are due January 10th, 2018. We encourage you to visit Play Smart, Play Safe, which is our home of everything that we do in health and safety for the league. And you will find the webinar, and you will find access to where you submit there. So I just want to highlight the Challenge 1 winners, Viatech and Guardian Cap. Viatech was an energy-absorbing module, and Guardian Cap, which is actually in market today, was created by Guardian Cap technology, which is a soft shell that covers the helmet, looking to mitigate injury. So both of these innovations fit outside and aim to absorb energy and mitigate, which is the question that was proposed. Could protective equipment look to protect? We do think so. Both of these innovations are going through a battery of laboratory testing and looking to prove efficacy. And hopefully they'll have the utility to be distributed, manufactured, and then distributed to all levels of our game. But that's and then Challenge 2, those winners will go through on our webinar, so I do encourage you to join these new innovations that are going through their first phase of development and testing within this program as well. But we will go into a deeper dive in our webinar again on December 12th at 11:30 if you would like to join us. And then last but not least, I think that this is what is very important to us here at the league. But we aim to help our players and athletes at all levels to make very informed decisions about the products that they wear. We hope that those products, yes, will prevent against injury, protect them, but prevent and mitigate injury as well. In the spring of every year, the NFL, in collaboration with the NFLPA, through our respective biomechanical experts, coordinate the latest round of laboratory testing on helmets, every helmet that is worn on our field for that upcoming season. The goal, as in all years, is to determine which helmets best reduce head impact severity under conditions simulating potential concussion-causing impact sustained by players that we see right now on our field. We are very excited this past year to see that 50% of the top-performing helmets within that testing were new designs. And so what we do and what the importance of the testing that we do is this poster that you see on the right-hand side is hung in every single locker room. Rod, please tell me it is in your locker room. You can confirm. But it is hung in every single locker room. And the aim here is so that we can educate our players of the testing that the NFL is doing with the NFLPA, because it is extensive. Which one of these helmets looks to or better improves your safety by mitigating that injury? And so this poster is hung in every single locker room, and we do hope that, and this is a big cultural change for us, we do hope that the investment and the testing that we are doing for these products will have the players make better informed decision on which one of the helmets that they are wearing better protects the injury. So I'm hoping that I not only answered the general question here, but really shared with you, one, our Play Smart, Play Safe initiative and how important it is for the NFL to not only invest in advancement in engineering and sports equipment, but also the extensive amount of testing that we do to inform our players, on which one of the helmets and footwear, for that matter, are better for them to mitigate injury.
Great, Jennifer. Obviously, great progress, and a lot of resources are spending in this, safety for the players. There are a couple of questions here. Before I go to the panel, there is one which is very interesting, and let me know if you have an answer for that. The question is that, is there a technology for in-game measurement to measure the concussions hazard and so on? Because we know it's an accumulated event. So is there technologies that are developed for in-game measurements?
Yeah, so when let me define in-game measurement for you from our sense. So right now, a part of the engineering roadmap, which is that $60 million investment, we have a large segment of that, and a large materiality for that matter, is to develop a sensor that will be worn by players, most likely in a mouth guard, that will measure head kinematics. And so what that will do is to help us to get to position-specific helmets, what is happening to the brain inside the helmet, so that we can create finite element models and have all those that are designing and manufacturing better products more informed to how concussions are happening on our field. So the data coming through that sensor is crucial to our success in 2020 if we do aim for position-specific helmets. That sensor is not in the marketplace today. We have contracts with two of the leading companies. One will create the chip, and the other one will create the system that then will be adopted and worn by players to help us to achieve our goal. But that is one of the most important elements to our success. All to come.
Interesting, very interesting, and very innovative. Thank you, Jennifer. Unfortunately, we cannot take more questions. Again, we will gather them together and forward you. We are now up to the esports section, and Rod, let us know when you're ready.
Should be now.
Great, let's go.
You see my screen?
Yeah, if you could just. Great.
Good. So, can you see my screen? I haven't heard yes or no.
I have, Rod. You're good.
Great. So the big question is, are esports sports? And I always give it a smell test. If it smells like sports, tastes like sports, looks like sports, it's probably sports. So quickly looking at it, I did a quick take view, a quick flyover, and said, well, what is it? Well, you have professional e-gamers who are rivaling sports stars in online followings. We have players that are personalities. E-tournaments, they're rival viewing figures of sport events. Sounds like sports. Advertising and sponsorships are following audiences and investing in esports. So advertising, sponsors, the Coca-Colas, the Intels, the NVIDIAs of the world are jumping in. It takes practice and skills to be a professional e-gamer. So you need skills. Not everyone can do it. So there's a professional status to it. Esports are starting to follow the standard sports model of a league. There's game-specific leagues. There's also general leagues, but there's lots of them being formed, both country-specific and worldwide. And and those leagues are having a limited number of teams. So it's starting to sound like regular sports leagues. And traditional sports teams, venue ownership groups are investing in these teams and leagues. So what is the definition of esports? I thought it was pretty simple, so I wanted to put one up on the screen. That it's known as various things, as electronic sports and esports and competitive video gaming, professional gaming, pro gaming, but it's really a form of competition that is facilitated by video games. Most commonly, esports takes the form of organized multiplayer video games competitions, particularly between professional players. Sounds like sports. So are e-gamers athletes? Well, you know, they are in some sense. They may not have the physical prowess, but they have other physical attributes which athletes have. So just looking at followers, well, the quick look on the internet, some of this list also shows actual teams, but it's showing that millions of people are following specific teams and specific players, and the numbers are only growing. Are they getting injuries? Well, here's a post of a player who said, you know, hey, I did have an injury, I'm making progress, but still not 100%. So right now, there's no central source for injury reports, but Newzoo, an organization that studies esports, reports that gaming injuries are gradually growing problem and something that teams are trying to combat by hiring relevant staff as well as training and education. Again, just like a team has trainers, conditioning coaches, and educators. Are there scandals? Well, apparently there are some scandals out there, and the leagues and the teams are looking to rectify that by creating boards or independent advisory groups. For example, the WESA, which is the World Esports Association, their motto is that we're going to further professionalize esports by introducing elements of player representation, standardized regulations, and revenue sharing for teams. Again, sports. Practice. Esports teams will practice 12, 15, 20 hours a day. You know, we hear about, you know, these people going on Twitch and spending anywhere from 3 hours to 24 to 48 hours playing games. Some of it is for, obviously, to gain followers and to sell, you know, to help their sponsors. But they do practice, they do work, and they do study techniques, and they watch videos of their opponents, and they learn, like teams. There's money. There's lots of prize money in this, and it's only growing. It seems small maybe compared to European football, soccer, or NFL, or rugby or cricket, but there is money. So teams are earning just in the last year or two close to $20 million on a team basis, and individual players are earning large sums of money, and they're good. And you can see by the flags, this is an international phenomenon. It includes players from just about every country in the globe today. Audience and events. These are growing by leaps and bounds year over year. If you just take a look at it, and I pulled some data from the United States and was comparing it to TV viewership, and the League of Legends Championship not only sold out the Staples Center in 2013, then sold out the 40,000-seat World Cup Stadium in Seoul, and is drawing an audience of 27 million people. And if you look at that number, that's more TV viewership than the final round of the Masters. And again, in the United States, the Masters is an important golf tournament. League of Legends is, generating more, and even more than the NBA Finals and the World Series, and dwarfed the Stanley Cup Finals in the United States. So e-gaming is driving viewers. Most of this is online, but hey, soon enough, it'll be an app on your smart TV. YouTube, just looking at the number of gaming streams that they have more viewers or more streams than news, movies, and education combined. So gaming is making a large impact, and we all see how many team owners, wealthy individual sporting athletes from soccer and from football and basketball are investing in teams because they see it as the future. Here's a picture of selling out the SSE Arena in Wembley by League of Legends. So this is not small. The production quality of these events is rivaling any sport. Here's the Beijing National Stadium, also known to most of us who watch the Olympics as the Bird's Nest Stadium, and they sold out 91,000 people to watch a final for the League of Legends World Championship. This just happened a couple of weeks ago. So it is filling up stadiums, and some stadiums are selling out in minutes. not in hours, not in days, not in weeks. It's just like a final, final for a traditional, what we would call sport. Is esports a business? Well, revenues are growing year over year, and investors and sponsors are jumping in. If you look, Coca-Cola has invested in it, and we look at two types of sponsors in esports. You have what we call the endemic sponsors, and that's on the right of the screen, like Intel, NVIDIA, Alienware, which is a Dell brand. They're selling to gamers, but now we see large traditional sports sponsors jumping in. And this is where Coca-Cola was sponsoring Riot Games and sponsoring eSport Weekly. Other brands like T-Mobile and others have taken notice and are jumping into it. So it is probably one of, again, the fastest growing areas of sponsorship from a growth perspective. Not total dollars, but growth. Just to give you a quick look at what is the consumer market for this, and as you can see that by 2019, revenue is expected to be $1.2 billion. It's phenomenal, the growth, the speed of the growth of it. The audiences are growing, matching. If you look, there's numerous games that are out there, but if you just look at the number of players worldwide, there's 1.4 billion registered gamers, and most of them are focused on the most, what I would call, popular competitive esports titles, like League of Legends and Dota 2 and Overwatch League. Just to give you an example, League of Legends alone has over 250 million players. It's amazing. And I'm kind of going to wrap up here that, do sports happen overnight? Do things get accepted overnight? Well, I took a look at history. And if you look back just 15, 20 years ago, extreme sports faced similar skepticism when they began in the early 90s. TV coverage was small and started growing. There wasn't a lot of online viewership. Now there's more of that. But the X Games have grown from a small beginning, and many of the sports now, like snowboarding, are being featured in the Olympics. So what wasn't considered a sport is now considered a sport. And I believe e-gaming will be the same. So my answer to the question is, resistance is futile. Esports are sports. It is massive, and it's only growing. Thank you.
Wow, great, Rod. I think you should be a lawyer, You rest your case. So really fantastic. Some of the numbers are staggering. There are a couple of questions coming from the audience, and I would like to, most of them are maybe to get a clarity between teams that are like real teams, let's say the Redskins, and real sports team that we know of, and let's say the Golden State Warriors, who just announced that they have invested millions in esport. So how can the teams themselves take the esport as a business?
Well, the easiest is the low-hanging fruit, because it is growing like regular sports. Tickets, audience, viewership, IP rights, shoulder programming, licensed merchandise, that the teams today, whether it's FC Barcelona or it's the Yankees just announced yesterday or today an investment in an esports team and actually a property that invests in esports teams, produces shoulder programming, and has a team, it's because they have the infrastructure that allows them to market and sell it. They have a sponsorship team, they have a marketing team, and they understand how to sell tickets and how to manage a fan base. So it's a natural progression for them. It's kind of like, wow, this is what we do now. We're just shifting to a new business that's the same in the early stages. So it's easy.
Understood. Okay, by the way, we are welcoming Ryan McCumber to the team. You can see his video. He's just coming soon to present. But just to wrap up this fascinating esports section, is there anybody from the panel that want to make a comment or a question to Rod about esport?
Prior to coming on, and this is a little bit of a joke, but prior to coming on to the NFL, I was a CFO at Atari Sports. So Rod, if you become the attorney, I can be your counterpart in finance to lead esports, but we both have the background, I think.
I still love Pong today, so Atari is in my heart. I know that's a long time ago. I'm showing my age. Thank you.
Good job, though.
And just to let people know that the NFL is working alongside EA Sports, which produces the game Madden, and Madden does a FIFA game and does a soccer game and does a FIFA game. So we're creating a team within the league parameters. So the NFL is running the league. Each of the teams will produce players that come to a final. So it's not necessarily a Redskins E-team or esports team, but we're bringing players from the Redskins fan base to go to the Super Bowl and play in a tournament representing the Redskins. So it is maybe not a direct approach where the NFL is saying each of your teams can invest. I'm sure they can on their own, but the league as a whole is building a platform of esports tied to the game that's endemic to them, Madden NFL, and we're bringing players into it. So we're taking advantage of esports in a kind of sideways way, but we're embracing it. We're not ignoring it.
So if I jump onto this comment, we all know that the NFL is the richest league.
What's the question?
Sorry, you lost audio.
Oh, we lost your audio.
Sorry, sorry about that. I'll repeat. We are wondering. You know, the NFL is definitely the richest league on earth. 13, 15 billion, any number revenue per year. So, how much of this will be in esport in 3 years? Just a ballpark number.
No, we're just finalizing our strategic plans that go out to 2021 right now, so I don't have an updated number, but I can tell you that is one of our highest initiatives as far as development and plans. I mean, if you think what we had done with fantasy, you know, there were so many competitors in the marketplace with fantasy, and we built our own fantasy league, and as Rod was explaining, we brought it internal. And we have the platforms to leverage it, but there are multiple millions of dollars that are being spent and that have already been spent to develop, you know, our leadership in this space, and a lot of that is in partnership with EA as well as others. So this is a tremendous opportunity. It was a white space, but I think that we're much more advanced into this space as far as development and planning, working with the 32 clubs as well. But it's a tremendous opportunity for us.
I think the answer is no one model for esports yet, but it is progressing like sports with leagues and teams and associations, and there'll be competitions and tournaments and inter-tournament tournaments and things like that. But whether it's FIFA or La Liga or the NFL, that each of the leagues is also looking at their specific e-game and trying to take control of it. Well, they take probably because they're working closely with the game manufacturers and providing IP rights, so they have a little bit of sway to say, we want to control our game. The NFL wants to control their game.
Rod, you are fading out, so I'll take this answer that it will be a lot of money, not a specific number, but thank you for that. Okay, that was really great. Ryan, the bar was set very high by Rod, and we are looking forward to see your presentation. Please.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Ilan?
Great.
Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone, I'm Ryan McCumber. I'm with KPMG's Global Sports Analytics. Kind of wear two hats. One is coordinating our Sports Analytics World Series conference around the world, and then helping to identify assets and leverage assets that KPMG can help deploy. One of which is Lava, which I'm going to talk about. Lava is founded, go to the next screen down, hold on. There we go. So Lava was founded by Vivek Randavi, who's the owner of the Sacramento Kings, and then Wen Miao, the CEO and founder of it, who's now kind of leading the program. They both came from a background, a company called Tibco Software, and they were really famous for integration, and one of the really famous projects was in the Las Vegas casinos. They were the software behind all the integration, all that loyalty platform that took place. When Vivek took Tibco private. He bought an NBA team, I guess, as you do when you have an extensive amount of money flush with. Took that funding with his new Sacramento Kings, and when he went to build the Golden One Center, get the next screen down here. Okay, their new stadium, the Sacramento Kings' new stadium. Really, he rehired back his main software engineers from Tibco, and he said, I wanted to create the greatest digital journey possible. How can we create that digital journey? How can we build a company from the ground up that's leveraging the cloud, leveraging things like Hadoop, cloud computing, and really the digital, and when planning for 5G when it eventually gets here.
Ryan,
yes, can you hear me?
Just a second. Can you put it on a presentation mode so we will have better clarity of the slides?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if it was on there. It's kind of being covered up. Hold on. Let me try to get rid of all your things there. Hold on. Sorry, guys. No, hold on. Is this not showing okay or no?
It's better. Please continue.
Okay. So what this does is there is really a gap, and what a lot of people are really good at is marketing before the event and marketing after the event. And there's really nothing takes place in the moment during the game itself. And basically what it allows you to do is target an individual group of customers at something that takes place real time in the moment, whether that be something in the game's happening, or you buy a concession, or something else happens. I'll give you some real examples. Let's say the target market is VIP customers. And when those VIP customers, if they've waited too long in line at the concession stand, because we can track where they are with their phone, the moment they check out, we can give them a free beer. And we can tell them right away, we know you've waited a long time. Or if, let's say, we know they recently renewed their season tickets, we can give them some sort of reward. So it's this in-the-moment, real-time that they specialize in. It's pretty unique, and I've been looking around the world. There's not many platforms that are able to do this real-time in the moment. What it then allows you to do is it really integrates multiple platforms. So let's say the concessions, your point-of-sale system, your ticketing system, and CRM system. And let's give an example of concessions are running low, or concessions have not run low in one certain section. So we haven't sold a lot of hot dogs or chicken tenders. We can then target customers in that section for something happening real time in the moment. Let's use the Kings example of if they hit a three-pointer, X amount of people in that one section may get a discount on the chicken tenders. And we can try to push the food that we need to push before now the game's over, because there's perishable goods. And those products, at the end of the day, you're basically able to push your merchandise or give discounts on loyalty platforms, whether that be certain points or others, but it's going to allow you to really engage those fans in a moment. 3 different parts of the program. There's kind of operationalizing the real-time data, capturing the special moments that take place. Again, it could be when you buy something, could be when you enter the stadium, could be when whether you click on something or something game time happened. But it's really that real-time engagement and then delighting the fan with something, whether it be a reward or loyalty points or something else. Now, this doesn't just take place in the stadium. This takes place around the world. I'm actually, even though I'm from New York, I'm based in Sydney, Australia, and we were able to log in and have the app, and they were able to push us those messages real time the moment something happened. So it really allows you to talk to your fan base everywhere. So as I'm talking to an example, I just met with Real Madrid last week. They have tons of fans in Indonesia, and they're looking for something real time. How can we engage with our fans real time when something happens in that game and keep them alive. So really, it's digitalizing that whole fan engagement, that whole journey, and really understanding kind of, how is it, can we increase revenue, reduce costs with our concessions, and increase maybe some merchandise. So I kind of pause there. Any questions? I can talk about, so KPMG has a relationship with Lava. We're helping them take it to the market outside of the US. We have a proof of concept going on right now with the Ashes in Australia, which is cricket, for those that aren't aware, and talking to all sports. Another program is kicking off with the Commonwealth Games, which is kind of like the Olympics, just for ex-English colonies. And we're doing stuff on the beach for beach volleyball, as well as in the arenas and everywhere else. So it's kind of all over, and we're really trying to engage the fans, get fans to vote on certain sports and other things, but really brings them in the loop and digitalizes everything.
Great, Ryan.
Elon, that's probably all I got. Yep.
Do you have any other slide to complete?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, great. So we have plenty of time for questions. We got a couple of interesting ones. One of them was about the reception in the stadium for Wi-Fi. People are complaining. I heard it from several sources that it's not so good. So is there a technology to improve that currently?
Yeah, look, every stadium that they're looking at is trying to put in, better Wi-Fi. We have a big problem with it in Australia. There's also 4G's coming and 5G's coming, and the phone networks are also still there. So it's not a limitation for this product. Obviously, in the Sacramento Kings Stadium, it's much better. That there is a slide I had earlier where it's really a big giant Tesla, that stadium. But yeah, look, I can't say it's all new stadiums are looking at it and focusing on it. I think, Elon, you were just in London. We had a whole future of stadium panel, and
yeah.
That is a problem, and it's something that's being addressed.
Okay. Another thing is about the personal data issues, the privacy of the fans. How is that going to be resolved?
So two things. One is the fans opt in from the app. So that's one way, but we don't just look at the fans that have the app. So even if you don't have an app, you've bought a ticket, and if you bought a ticket, we also know who you are, and if we're not going to try to sell you something, but we can give you something, and we can still target those customers. So there is different privacy issues coming up in Europe that we're aware of and focusing on, but there's definitely ways around it. And especially, like you said, if the customer buys a ticket, if they're a season ticket holder, if they have the app, there are certain ways they're already opting in, so to say. But we're definitely aware of it, and it's definitely more stringent in Europe than it is in the US.
Thank you. Another question came about out-of-stadium fans. I mean, while the game is on, how is the fan engagement experience that you can bring to people that are in remote location outside the country, but they are still really die-hard fans?
Yeah, so it's that real time in the moment. So we can target those fans and send them a message saying if X happens in the game, you can get X, and those you can reward them with points. So while you can't give them a discount on concessions, you can't say, here's a free gift certificate to Taco Bell, because in the Philippines, there may not be a Taco Bell. But what you can do is you can give them loyalty points, and then they can redeem loyalty points for other things online. So there are certain things they can buy, whether it be jerseys, whether it be merchandise. There are certain things that the Kings are doing where we can build up this whole loyalty concept. One thing, just to let you know, so when they went live with this, it is all tied to loyalty points. And if you get to the stadium early, they may give you 1,000 bonus. Every time you buy something, you use the app. And everyone got in the habit of collecting these points, similar to flying on your airlines. And they made it really easy to redeem points for an equipment or for a jersey. So a jersey that may have costed, for simplistic terms, $100, if you spent $75 on merchandise, you could buy that jersey. You would get enough points. Now, obviously, they lost $25 on that, but the the habit and what they got every single person into using the app and to collecting the points. Now next year they'll start to tweak it a little bit and they'll move it up the scale, but now everyone in the Seoul stadium knows to use their app every time they buy anything in the stadium. And it's kind of got everyone kind of used to it, so to say. So it's that kind of training of the mind.
Elon, do you mind if I ask a question?
Please do so.
So there are, thank you, Ryan. That was informative. There are so many, sports solutions that focus on fan engagement. And as you look to bring this to the market, the goal, of course, is a point of purchase. But how do you differentiate Lava to all those other competitors that are in the space?
Yeah, so the main difference is that real-time in the moment and the integration software. So because they're not a sports team, the Sacramento Kings come from Tibco, so they are the kind of world's leading integration software. So it's kind of a proven software. I guess the differentiator also I would say is they just were implemented in the Atlanta Falcons stadium, Mercedes-Benz, in a matter of 3 months, and they actually, the incumbent was kicked out and Lava was brought in. And then the fact they're in Sacramento Kings, so I guess kind of they have two of the leading stadiums right now in the respective sports. And I'm aware of the competition because I have those speakers also speak at our conference. But I do know it's differentiated.
Yeah. No, I figured
more the software itself.
Being in your role and what you were trying to do, that's why I asked the question. I figured you would know the competition.
Yep.
Good luck to you.
Any other comments from the panel? Thank you, Ryan, and kudos to the Sacramento Kings. They won yesterday against the Warriors, although without Curry and Durant. So, but still, a nice win. And
I'm a pseudo Kings fan. I'm a Philadelphia Sixer fan when I was born. So we have a great season ahead of us.
So you were humiliated by the Cavaliers yesterday, but still,
yeah, I'm aware. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch it from London.
Wow.
Trust the process. Okay, Glenn, you are on. This is going to be the last presentation. It's on a kind of out of the box, and we are looking forward to hear you, Glenn. You're on.
Yes. So my talk is a little bit outside the norm here in comparison to the previous panelists, but it still addresses something that I think is underlying just about everything that we've talked about so far today. That is, how do we actually handle training the athletes and the performers themselves? So much of what we love about sports is watching people perform at the limits of what we think, a human is capable of. So how do we actually prepare people for these moments, and how do we then translate that same preparation into everyday lives and workplaces? So my background is in neuroscience. My PhD is focused on how the brain creates emotion and how we regulate emotion under a variety of circumstances. So for most people, though, emotion is kind of a dirty word. Most people are taught to suppress negative emotions, to embrace positive emotions as much as possible, and to fight against discomfort. But what you see is that the people who are able to perform at the highest levels are those who actually can embrace performance at the very limits. This is the topic that we're most interested in at the USC Peak Performance and Performance Science Institute. We're interested in how do people actually perform and what actually makes people tick, and what are the techniques that we can then train. We're interested in people like this. This is Alex Honnold. For those of you who don't know, Alex was recently the first person, and probably going to be the only person for many years, to free solo El Capitan in Yosemite. Free soloing means climbing without any ropes or aid of any kind. Here he is on a similar route, an overhanging route. He's probably about 1,000 feet off the ground here, just basics, just working with his own ability to remain calm in the situation. So Alex himself has some extremely interesting emotion regulation abilities. He talks a lot about fear as being critical to his success. This is, again, contrary to how most people think about negative emotion. When most people think about negative emotion, it's something to be fought against, whereas the people who actually are performing at the highest level take the viewpoint that emotion is mandatory for good performance. Alex breaks up his performance in terms of fear and risk and consequence. Here he knows that the consequence is quite high, but he feels that the risk is indeed quite low because he knows he won't ever fall on this route, or that's his what his training has led him to believe. So for him, regulating that emotion comes down to understanding and breaking apart the different feelings related to the challenges that he faces. And indeed, when people scan brains like Alex, you actually can see differences in the fear circuitry in terms of how people like Alex might actually process fearful stimuli in a completely different way compared to, control everyday people. In this image you can see, which is a little bit difficult to understand if you're not used to looking at brain images, but situated here at the crosshairs is a part of the brain known as the amygdala, which is a critical part of the brain for salience processing. It's not necessarily for fear, but it's for understanding and guiding yourself through novel situations that include fear, of course. But how we regulate activity in regions like the amygdala determines so much about how we can perform. And here we see that somebody like Alex has a fundamental different pattern of brain activity compared to healthy controls. So emotion then is critical for decision making. And what's fun about emotion, when we start playing with these terms like emotion and feeling and mind, what it gives us is just a toolkit for you treating our life as a laboratory. As we train our students and soon-to-be business leaders, we like to think of every day as just a chance to run an experiment. In our case, emotion is the byproduct of good experimentation, and it's important for decision making. We also know that the brain anatomy for decision making, insofar as it's related to emotion, is actually rooted in emotion itself and not logic. So decision making is part emotion, part logic. And finally, we have now tools related to how we train our minds such that we can take advantage of emotion and health regulation strategies. So what we have are the ingredients for performance that relate to the challenges we face in the world, but also our emotions that can arise as we face these challenges. And then we have our mind, which is the ability to regulate and change how we perceive these things. What's interesting to me as a neuroscientist is that the closer we get to the actual brain anatomy for decision making, the closer we get to seeing that when people are making improper decisions, usually the part of it that is missing is the emotion component. So people with lesions to a specific part of the brain, namely the prefrontal cortex or the medial prefrontal cortex, are actually unable to develop the proper stress response for stressful decision making. And as a result, their even most basic decision-making abilities go out the window. So when people say don't get emotional, they're not just inaccurate, they are actually wrong. So emotion and reason have to work together at all times, and this is what you see in the highest level athletes. Here's some interesting examples from research that shows some of the ways that emotion and emotion regulation can play into our performance. So in this very simple experiment, people were induced to feel happiness, anger, anxiety, or sadness. And then were asked to perform a set of physical tasks, very simple tasks like jumping and throwing a ball. So in the physical tasks, anger and happiness were both better than anxiety and sadness for performance. And doesn't this fit so well with our what we hear from elite athletes in terms of what motivates them to perform? So Kobe Bryant often talks about being motivated by hatred, by this extreme competitive urge. And in fact, that ability to induce that emotion, even something like anger, which we normally think of as very maladaptive, can actually increase performance across a number of domains. What I think is so interesting in this experiment is that happiness was comparable to anger. And you'll see that also in sports performers where they talk about the need to recall a specific memory or a family member that they play for. How often have you heard after a game football players recalling, I was here for my grandma, she raised me, and that's a form of gratitude which is related to happiness that can actually promote good pro-social behavior, but also increased physical performance. I hope that at this point we're uncovering the message that emotion and performance go together in really interesting ways. And then when we understand emotion, we can begin to play with it. So this example, and I'm sorry for the fairly confusing graph, but focus on the top line in panel B. Can you guys see my mouse cursor by chance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, okay, good. So just focus on these three little diamonds over here. So don't worry too much about any of the rest of this. Just notice that these three little diamonds are higher than the rest of this noise. This is the result of an experiment in which people were asked to make very simple decision-making over time, basically just playing a very simple card game. And what they found is that if they put people in a negative mood and then had them either reappraise, suppress, or do nothing with the mood, their performance changed as a result. So people who were taught to reappraise the negative mood, such as saying, well, sadness is just part of life, it's part of how we grow, how we understand things, so feeling sadness is actually okay. Reappraising that negative emotion actually led to just better decision making. That is in a very simple game where you're asked to just turn over cards to try to make the most money. Reappraising a negative emotion was actually associated with much higher performance overall than those who were taught to just suppress their negative emotion. Suppression is one of our common coping strategies, which is that when you're feeling bad, you're hurt, you're told to just suck it up, to deal with it, to ignore it. And in fact, in the most basic decision-making tasks, suppressing negative emotion is associated with a strong decline in performance compared to actually working with emotion in a skillful manner. Again, this is in the most basic decision-making task, and you see this in sports performers who can handle the pressure. Maybe you're down in the fourth quarter and you need to get better. Maybe you're accelerating and you need to keep your competitive edge. But in all cases, our ability and our skill for regulating emotion determines so much of our performance. So the hope is that by training people in how to perform better, we can thus see, or training people to understand emotion more carefully, that their performance will increase as well. In this example, we have elite cyclists, and we're measuring the amount of oxygen that they're consuming over time. And we put them into one of two emotions. One is an unpleasant emotion, and one is a positive emotion. And given that the skill parameter, the skills between these cyclists were, in fact, very similar, we see that people in the unpleasant emotion actually used much more oxygen over the time span of the workout compared to those in the positive emotion. I think results like this are so interesting. For one thing, because emotion is meant as part of our biological systems for health and well-being. Emotion is central to our evolution and it's central to our species. So why don't we use it more carefully? Experiments like this demonstrate that the ability to evoke a positive emotion saves a little bit of wear and tear on our body. The ability to uncork and understand that emotion is a natural process associated with performance and stress allows us to increase our abilities overall. So there are all kinds of studies that show that our mindset for thinking about emotion and feeling predicts so much about how we do, and yet so little time is spent actually training the mind. So that's what we're all about. At our institute, we host a minor and a class. So this is a flyer, this is a little commercial for our class called The Science of Peak Performance, and I encourage anybody here to drop in. It's on Monday nights here at USC. And we actually, of course, lectures on these exact topics. We draw from my experience as a neuroscientist. We bring in scholars, and we bring in coaches like Pete Carroll. We bring in entrepreneurs to talk about the challenges they've faced. And we deliver these to undergraduates to help them perform in their lives. And this class is now the second largest class at the USC Marshall School of Business, or the second largest elective. And we've been so heartened by the response that we've had from students. It's been great. We also have a minor in performance science at USC that takes the best classes around USC and puts them together so students can study mind-body business. They learn a little bit about psychology, a little bit of biology, and a little bit of entrepreneurship. Because entrepreneurs and business people, we face so many of the same challenges that athletes face, and we believe that by training entrepreneurs and business people the same way we train elite athletes, we'll see better, more compassionate, more interesting, and more creative business ventures overall. We've had great luck training our students so far, and we're just beginning. We just launched the Institute, which is now called the Performance Science Institute, just basically a few months ago with a kickoff event with Brene Brown, who's an expert in vulnerability. We also have Alex coming on January 31st. He's going to be interviewed by myself and Michael Gervais, who's a big performance psychologist as well. And I'm going to leave us with, since I'm the last panelist, I feel like I have the chance to leave us with a little bit of Tuesday advice for us. Alex tells us, choose the thing that inspires you and go out and try. If anything, the bigger and more grand it seems, the better. If you're like, oh, I could never do that, that's too much, it probably means that that's the right thing for you, that you're on the right track. So this is Alex's little clue for how he regulates emotion. And I look forward to your questions, and I'm honored to be a part of the panel. Thank you very much.
Great, Glenn. Obviously inspiring words, and thank you for being so sharp at 7 a.m. in Los Angeles.
I did it.
Let me go to the panel before I get the final questions from that I have here. Anybody from the panel wants to comment on the Ryan presentation, on the Glenn presentation? All right, so I'll take 2 questions. The first one is there's a possibility to identify a mental profile in young athletes that can predict their performance when they grow up?
Yeah, there have been a lot of efforts to do just that, and we're working with some teams to do it. And we're working with USC Athletics. The main thing that we actually look for is not so much a fixed profile, but in fact a mindset that involves growth and the ability to learn and change over time. When you study what actually makes an elite performer, the #1 predictor is actually the amount of hours that they spend practicing their craft. This notion that people are born into a specific talent is only marginally true. The main thing that predicts who does well is how hard they're willing to work for it. So when you profile people, and this includes those of you out there who are starting businesses, what you're looking for is much more on the ability for this person to learn and grow and have drive and passion and that competitive impulse, more so than the pedigreed marks or any sort of idea that, oh, we need an extrovert to match our introvert, or we need somebody who's conscientious or whatever. Really what you need is people who are driven, and that's one of the most important predictors. You know, grit is having a big moment right now in science for people who are passionate and can persevere toward long-term goals. That's a major predictor of success. We see this as well in the elite military forces that we work with, that it's not always, it's not in fact always the biggest, most talented athlete that does well. It's the people who just want it more. And there are ways to measure that.
Understood. Very interesting. And lastly, is there kind of practical set of, I would say, a product or a protocol that professional athletes could use based on these findings to improve their performance?
Yeah, so it's a matter of actually mindful training. So we can train our minds. It takes regular work, and it takes very skilled teaching. The thing about mindfulness is that it's only as good as the teacher you have. And so there's a bit of a backlash, I think, coming in terms of meditation and mindfulness, because many people just appoint themselves mindfulness instructors. And so there's a lot of bad instruction out there for how to meditate properly. But for those who can engage in it skillfully and have the right mentorship and the right training, daily meditative practice and daily mindfulness exercises can will and have been shown in the scientific literature to greatly enhance performance, recovery, resilience. All the things we need elite performers to have.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everybody. We will conclude now. You were very, I would say, disciplined panel, and all the presentation went very formative. And we could see the spectrum of investment in technology and innovation in the sport, different industries and subsegments. I'm sure that everybody can see that today there is more and more startups, more and more technology that is coming to solve some of the problems that were raised here. We definitely see that in the top 50 program that we are having and in all of the other activity. Thank you for all the audience, and this session was taped and could be distributed later, and we will take all the offline questions and distribute it to the people that asked. So have a good night and good day everywhere, and you can also email me to ilan@hypefoundation.org, and thank you again, and see you in the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan.